Joining me now is U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican of Texas, author of the new book, One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. Senator, welcome back.
Guy, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So I have to ask you a very important question first, because I was watching some of the footage of you meeting with Judge Amy Coney Barrett yesterday, and It just struck me, this beard that you have has really been a staple now for a while. And as someone who kind of toyed with the idea and experimented with facial hair a little bit during some of the coronavirus lockdowns, at what point did you decide, you know what, hell, I like it, it's staying?
You know, I grew the beard, actually, it was Thanksgiving of 2016, and I just, vacations, I would never shave on vacation, and so, but I'd always come back and shave when I got back from vacation, and when I got back, I just said, to hell with it, I'm going to leave it, and it was not, there was no grand statement or design, it was just, I hadn't done that since law school, I figured, why not, and I got to tell you, my campaign manager, emailed me in all caps, it's like, worst decision ever. He was so unhappy, and that sort of resolved me to double down. And if nothing else, it has driven the lefty Twitter trolls insane. So that there's some virtue to that.
So it's a 4-year-old beard at this point. Time has really flown by, Senator. I have to say, I would not have guessed that. Right? I guess everything, all ability to understand the passage of time seems to be completely obliterated in 2020. Was there buy-in at some point from your wife where she was like, yes, I like it, or it's good enough, you can keep it, or was it just sort of an executive call?
Oh, and actually, by the way, I think I'm off 2 years. It was not 2016; it was 2018. So
okay,
it was after I did. So it would have been November 2018. So 2 years. Heidi, she doesn't love it and she doesn't hate it. It's sort of in that ambivalent gray zone.
Fair enough. All right, so let's talk about the actual significance of that meeting that you had yesterday with Judge Barrett.
Yeah.
I know you're familiar with her and her record. I know you were one of the senators who voted to confirm her in 2017 to the Seventh Circuit. Now she's been elevated in this absolutely crucial moment on an issue that you might care more about than any other issue out there, hence the new book. Talk about your meeting with Judge Barrett and your thoughts about this process moving forward.
Well, sure. I thought she was very impressive. I sat down with her for about 45 minutes in the Capitol yesterday, and her credentials are tremendous. I mean, she was number one in her class at Notre Dame Law School. She clerked for Justice Scalia on the Supreme Court. She's been a law professor at Notre Dame for the last 20 years. And she's one of the most respected appellate judges in the country. And on top of that, she's also a mom of 7 kids, which I can't even imagine doing the last one, much less doing all of them at the same time. I mean, she's I think quite extraordinary, and I think it was a strong pick by the president. I was impressed by her demeanor, by her calm, by her seriousness. You think about it, not too long ago, she had a fairly quiet life of a law professor and judge, and suddenly she's in the middle of this maelstrom where you've got Democrats unloading on her, attacking her family. I think it's going to get substantially worse. A lot of our meeting, I was actually talking about how her kids were doing, how she was holding up on it, and she's. I think she has a very calm, scholarly, judicial demeanor that I think will serve her well in the confirmation hearings, and. I think we have the votes. I'm confident the Senate is going to confirm her by the end of the month before Election Day.
Okay, so that's a key part here, because I've asked some of your Senate colleagues about this. I was making a case pretty early on that this should happen before the election for a number of reasons. One of the reasons that you have raised is that should there be a big legal battle involving the election, which could be quite thorny and messy because of all the coronavirus-related complications and vote by mail, etc., you need a full complement of 9 justices if one of these major issues were to go up to the Supreme Court. I think that's a plausible explanation in my mind. What about the pushback from people? And there's all sorts of finger-pointing back and forth about hypocrisy in 2016 and Merrick Garland, and I think these are different circumstances for a number of different reasons, but it didn't seem to bother many Republicans back in that election year that there were only 8 justices for months on end, a much longer period of time. Why is having 9 justices now so much more urgent and important than it was then?
Well, I think the two are very different circumstances. Number one, if you look at the historical precedent, 29 times we've had Supreme Court vacancies in presidential election years. Presidents have made nominations all 29 times. What the Senate has done has varied dramatically depending upon whether the Senate is of the same party as the president or a different party from the president. When the two are the same party, 17 of those 19 nominations have been confirmed. The Senate traditionally will confirm Supreme Court justices made for a vacancy in a presidential election year if they're of the same party.
Correct.
If they're of different parties, that's happened 10 times. The Senate's only confirmed those nominees twice. Barack Obama in 2016 fell into that. And it's important to note, Guy, that that's not just a partisan distinction. That is very much a structural design in the Constitution, the checks and balances. For a Supreme Court justice to take the bench, you need the president and the Senate. And so when they're of different parties, they have historically checked each other. That's what happened.
Senator, just to jump in, I totally agree. And in fact, I've made that precise case over and over again on this show at townhall.com. I fully support nominating someone and filling the seat before the election. We're on the same page. On the piece, though, about 8 versus 9 justices, what's the distinction there?
Look, I will readily agree. If we had significant election litigation in 2016, having 8 justices could have posed a serious problem. Thankfully, we didn't have election litigation. You mentioned a minute ago my book that came out this week,
yes.
One Vote Away, about the Supreme Court, and every chapter of the book talks about a different constitutional right, and it shares really war stories because many of the landmark cases I helped litigate, so it tells the inside story. So one of the chapters is on Bush versus Gore. That was the last major contested presidential election we had. That was in the year 2000. I was a young lawyer working on the George W. Bush campaign. I was part of the legal team that represented Bush in Bush versus Gore. And in fact, Heidi and I, we met on the Bush campaign in Austin, Texas. We were both in cubicles about 20 feet apart from each other. I was in Florida for the entire time. That recount lasted 36 days. And if you remember what happened, on election night, President Bush won the count. But it was close, and Al Gore challenged it and filed a series of lawsuits throughout the state of Florida. It was utter chaos. As I write in the book and I recount the details of what happened there, we had a war room and we had a whiteboard on the wall. There were 7 different lawsuits all on the whiteboard, all simultaneously pending, any one of which could have cost the presidency of the United States. And it was massive uncertainty, and the case ended up going twice to the U.S. Supreme Court. The first time, we prevailed unanimously. The court 9-0 vacated the Florida Supreme Court, so the Florida Supreme Court had gotten it wrong and sent it back. Florida Supreme Court, which was a partisan Democratic court, basically told the U.S. Supreme Court, go jump in a lake. Case went back to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the second time in the critical ruling, the vote was 5-4.
Right.
Where the court said enough is enough. The votes have been counted 4 times. George W. Bush has won all 4 times. Enough is enough. This is over, and we had a winner and finality. And that if we had an 8-justice court, if the court had been 4-4, under the Constitution, the court can't render a decision, and we could have dragged on that. Those 36 days of uncertainty could have dragged on for weeks and months further.
Yeah, no, I think that point is well taken, and I look forward to reading that passage of this book, One Vote Away. The subtitle: How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. So, of course, you've been working on this book long before. I'm sure it was put to bed long before Justice Ginsburg passed away, and there's this last-minute opening that is really so significant in terms of the ideological balance of the court in this particular moment in time. You've got the book that's forthcoming. You must have this moment where you think, oh, my God, I've got a book on the Supreme Court coming out about one crucial vote and how it can change history. Yep. So with the new context of current events, how potentially will this seat change history?
Well, I think it's a very strong nomination. As I said, I think we will confirm the nominee. And on issue after issue, you take free speech. Free speech, the book talks about the Citizens United case, which upheld the right of Americans to criticize politicians. That was 5-4. The dissenters were ready to rule that your free speech rights can be taken away. Religious liberty, case after case on religious liberty has been 5-4. One of the cases that I litigated was defending the Ten Commandments monument on the state capitol grounds in Texas. It's been there since 1961. Actually has a wild backstory that I tell in the book about how when it was erected, Cecil B. DeMille, the Hollywood movie producer and director, he had just come out with the movie The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston in it, and he got behind a nationwide effort to erect Ten Commandments monuments all over the country, and Texas was one of them. Ours went up in 1961, and what happened is an individual plaintiff who was an atheist, he's a homeless man, filed a lawsuit arguing that the Constitution prohibits having the image of the Ten Commandments on public land. That case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we won 5-4. The court upheld the monument. There were 4 justices ready to order the state of Texas and everywhere else, bring out the bulldozers, bring out the chisels, knock it down.
Yeah, so it's 6-3 versus 5-4. Obviously, there's more breathing room, there's more wiggle room. If there's a certain Supreme Court Chief Justice, for example, that might go wobbly on something, you've got maybe one more conservative there on the court. I do want to ask you this because this whole discussion is in the framework of 9 justices. There is talk about having 11, 12, 13, I don't know, more justices. It seemed like Joe Biden was against that. Now he won't talk about it. He really refuses to even go down that path. Same with his running mate. We saw one of your colleagues in the Senate say yesterday, well, we'll figure that out after the election. Please just give us the power of vote for us now. We'll get around to that later and make some decisions. How seriously do you take the court-packing threat?
I take it deadly seriously. I think if the Democrats win in November, if we wake up and the government is run by Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, I think one of the very first things Schumer will do is end the filibuster. I put the odds of that at 100%. That's where the Democrats are. If they end the filibuster, it means the Senate minority cannot stop whatever agenda they want to ram through. If they do that, I think one of the first things they'll tee up is adding 2 new states to the United States, adding the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. And the reason for doing so is cravenly political in that the Democrats believe that will immediately elect 4 new Democratic senators. So if we start January with 50 Democratic senators, I think their objective would be to end the year with 54 to try to entrench their power. And then I believe that if they have control of Congress and the presidency, they will pack the court. We've seen a Democratic president try it before. FDR tried it, and his own party stood up and stopped him. I don't believe they would this time. And Joe Biden refused to answer the question last night. The reason he refused to answer it is I think he knows his party is furious that President Trump has gotten to nominate 3 Supreme Court justices, and I think if they have power, they will ram it through and immediately increase the size of the court, which would politicize the court. It would destroy the independence of the court, and it would naturally lead to escalation. It would mean the next time Republicans take it, we'd then expand it further, and it would really do, I think, damage to the institution of the Supreme Court.
U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, we have to leave it there, a member of the Judiciary Committee. It's going to be very busy for the next few weeks with that pending nomination. His new book out yesterday, One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. Senator, appreciate your time. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you, Guy. I appreciate it. And I'll say the book, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a lawyer or constitutional expert. It tells you about the Supreme Court. It tells you about the stakes in the fight over Judge Barrett. And it tells you about the stakes in the 2020 election. So go buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you can find books, you can find it.